Yes, ma'am.
It's Southern hospitality.
There is. I mean, but I'm saying it's a respect, though, that's ingrained for people that are older. I mean, we're living in such a weird time because on one hand, there's the violence and the popping off, but on the other hand, there's the respect. And I love going into the schools. I mean, I love going into the schools.
Okay. You're hungry. It's lunchtime. You're in Lake City.
Okay.
Where you gonna eat at?
Okay, so I've got a couple of different places.
Give me one.
Okay.
Off the head.
I like Lavelle's, but I also
Shout out to
like. But I
Lavelle's.
also,
Okay. You're from Lake City.
But let me just say, because I'm older than y'all and I have to watch my cholesterol and diet and I try to be in the gym, I really like, getting salads. So I'll go to multiple places, but lately I've actually been doing my own salads. But I will say I've cheated all this week at Baker's Sweets because there's a gentleman by the name of Jermaine that is doing some throwdown food, and the menu is Mama's. Mama's cooking, and so today I had ribs.
Oh, you cheated
I had
today.
cabbage.
Cheat day. Cheat day.
And sweet corn, and it was like slap your mama, really good. I mean, he was throwing down, and normally all I get is a salad. So.
You had a bit more than a salad today.
I did. And the Inn, they do a good job too, but there's all kinds of little spots here. But the other thing that's crazy is, I don't know if you all know Martin Cooper, but
Martin?
Yeah, Martin can throw down. So it's like, you don't have to necessarily go to restaurants. All you have to do is like tell people, anybody's mama or uncle, because it seems like food is a big sense of pride in Lake City.
Absolutely.
Like families will battle it out.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, so maybe what we need to do is actually get some of our young people that are in sets to actually have cook-offs.
Cook-offs, yeah.
Can you cook?
Who?
Oh, wow.
Now listen. Now listen. I'm gonna tell you. You're getting in grown people's business now.
Say less.
But I'm not the greatest cook. My husband is a better cook, but I do have something that I do that no one
Shout out
can
to
touch.
men that's good in the kitchen.
And listen, and my husband is a brother. My husband is a man. My husband is a black man. Like he is, but he really can throw down. And so after we got married, I would cook for him, and I'd be like, "Baby, I made it with love," and he'd be like, "I need you to use a recipe."
Shout out to men that wife up the women that they want, and they appreciate it. They see something in them. Say, you know what, you're gonna be what you feel. We're gonna be together.
Okay, but what you also need to understand.
Okay, let's talk about it.
No. My husband said to me, "I'm just about to issue you a contract, but I need to see a square meal. But I need to see one good meal." I was salty about that. I wanted to say, "Well, I'm about to husband you, and I need you to fix something around the house." But anyway.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, we got everybody tuned in, so we welcome everybody to Two Tears in the Bucket podcast, episode 18. We got a special guest in the house. We have the Lake City Administrator, Ms. Stephany Snowden.
And if you all weren't so phenomenal, I'd be in my bed right about now, getting ready. So y'all, I've been hustling all day, dealing with trash issues and stuff.
Since 5 this morning.
Yes,
give us a rundown of your day.
Okay, so I'm usually checking news and also making sure that overnight nothing happened, water line breaks, shootings, or what have you. And the thing about me is I don't get involved. I'm not going to go out on a scene or anything because I do have confidence in my police department, but water line breaks and things like that, I think it's very, very, very important to lead away from your desk.
Absolutely.
And I have cleaned the toilets in here as the administrator with a master's degree from Clemson.
All right.
I think what is lacking sometimes in leadership is people think it's a top-down thing, and it ain't. What I view my role is that yes, I have to make the tough decisions, but you can't lead unless you're willing to serve.
You
have to look at yourself as a servant. And so if people know, I mean, when I want to get the city cleaned up, I'm talking about physically with trash, I'll call Mr. Ricky Sims and say, hey, have the guys meet me on Main or meet me wherever so we can pick up trash. So I'll put my gloves on and pick up trash. And I ain't perfect. I make mistakes every day.
We all do.
But the one thing about it is that if your team knows that you're willing to be there with them and you're not sitting there on a high horse like I'm too good for this and that, because what I tell everybody, I had a big meeting just last week, we're not here for ourselves. We're here to serve the citizens. We may not be the biggest city, we may not be the richest city, but we can be the best serving city. And I actually had training right when I got in, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, so, and I love McDonald's, but the whole theme was, who do you want to be? Do you want to be McDonald's or do you want to be Chick-fil-A? So, and I'm not
We're not McDonald's shaming.
But
McDonald's shaming.
But all I'm saying is that when you, and I'm not going to use it, but y'all know, it be like a strategic government SWAT team exercise for one of these chains when you get ready to have lunch.
Absolutely.
Like the SWAT is coming down, taking that order.
Yes,
by the time you get to the window, boom,
I mean,
bam,
they
done.
with you every step of the way too.
Exactly.
Like soon as I step over to wait on my, sir, you did anything?
No, they don't call you sir. They say Maine.
Yeah. They gonna
Would
get
you
your
like
name.
another
They gonna get your name.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, but the thing is that it's actually a whole culture, and so the thing is that in everything that we do, and I definitely believe in excellence, is that even a city, and people don't think about this, can provide excellence. Everybody in here knows if you talk crazy to the citizens or whatever else, and they get the complaint may be we may not be able to provide the resources, but a complaint about us getting talking slick to the community or not being polite when people are coming to pay their water.
That's a problem.
If you want to get, I try to be very even keeled, but we're not going to, first of all, taxpayers are paying our salaries.
Absolutely.
We're the Chick-fil-A and the McDonald's. So you're going to get slick with the people that are your bosses?
Wrong move.
So I think sometimes in these seats, people forget we're not here for ourselves. And I have been in government for 20 years, and I honestly take that to heart.
That was going to be my next question. Could you give us a little bit about your background and how did you get to this position that you're in now where you're the administrator in Lake City?
Okay, God's grace and mercy. So I actually started out in radio and television many years ago when y'all were probably but a little tadpole swimming to actually, yeah, right, exactly. But I actually, I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and my undergraduate degree is in English literature from Old Dominion. And I always wanted to be on radio and TV, so I was able to work for one of the big radio stations there. And I would get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, drive to North Carolina, and then by 8:30, 9 o'clock, be in my classes in Norfolk. Because I'm just always been a morning person. So I did that for a while, worked in Phoenix, Arizona, in radio, won some investigative awards and things like that. But one of the things, even as a TV reporter and radio reporter, one of the things I always had to think about was if I was just going in for the kill, if I was just going in for the story, it didn't sit right with me. So I would always first say, is what I'm doing harming people? Because sometimes, y'all have seen it, media will go in, take what they want, and then go. I remember when I was in Phoenix, there was a whole family. The men were, in Phoenix, it was in the 90s, it was Mexican gangs, right? And there was a family of about 5 or 6 men. They were in a car, and they were at a stop sign, and some gang members thought they cut them off. They shot and killed the entire. It was probably about 3 generations of this family. Wow. And I'll never forget, I was in the neighborhood, and there was a reporter standing in the family's yard. She's getting the family screaming and all of that. And I was like, I can't do that. So I just went and talked to the neighbors. And this is the deep thing about it. This was probably about 94. They literally, the gang members came back and started shooting. My rule of thumb was if the police were there, we were then all good. Right. They came back and started shooting while... Because it was wild. They had in the 90s, Phoenix had a 200% increase in gangs. But anyway, so I digress. But those were the kinds of experiences, that I would have. And I would always try to be tough. There was a woman who actually set her 3 children on fire. I'll never forget. This was the last story that I ever covered in Phoenix, which has millions of people. And I was at the was facing, the mother told the children she was going to be playing a game with them, and she doused them in gasoline, set on fire, and the police officer or the firefighters came. It is but it is. But I remember covering the funeral, and one of the children actually survived. And you had the little girl, his 9-year-old sister. Her casket was draped with like girly bunnies or something with a blanket, and then the little boy with a phoenix sun. And as much as I was trying not to, I just broke down. I mean, like I was crying.
Right.
And so everything that I do, and I'm not perfect, but I try to actually have compassion for what I was looking at that little boy and thinking, how is his life? What is going to be of his life? Not only has he lost his siblings, but his mom is the person who actually did it. And so there's always been cruelty in this world, but I do think that light kind of shines it. So I was a reporter. For a time, I actually was a reporter in Myrtle Beach. Then I got into government, loved it, government communications. I've had a background in law enforcement. I was a major with the Richland County Sheriff's Department, but my primary responsibility was actually implementing programs. The one thing about Sheriff Lott is that he's very much understands demographics, data, and he was on the cutting edge. He's been the sheriff in Richland County for 21 years, probably almost 22 years. But like I would say, hey, we need to do traffic safety stop education before our young people are actually hitting the road, and not in a hard sell. But the thing is that one of the things that I kind of found out is that the lack of police training, and people are critical of that, but like a government the size of Lake City that has a $7 million general fund budget, police is about 32% of my budget. I can't spend $100,000 on training. Richland County Sheriff's Department has a $40 million budget. They have their own training. They have their own training section. I'm telling you, training really is the answer, because every year an officer has to actually has to requalify with their weapon. He used to have guardian versus warrior training. When is the time to engage? PTSD training. And so in Richland County, I think there might over the last probably 7 or 8 years been one officer involved shooting, and that happened because a gentleman pointed a gun at a K-9 officer, and he was asking him to put it down, and he was getting ready to take the shot. But other than that, there's been no black man in Richland County that has lost his life within the last 7 or 8 years in Richland County. That is training. If you're trained, there have been, just in the last year, there was a 15-year-old that was firing on the deputies with an AK-47. They were serving a warrant because he had killed some goats, and he also attempted rape and that sort of thing.
You say goats? That's
goats.
Crazy.
He did. No, I'm just saying, and this was a young African-American child. I'm just making that point. But the deputies didn't take a shot, even though they did that, and it's training. And the other thing that he emphasizes is physical fitness. Because see, if you actually, in some FBI training that I had, you know, one of the reasons why there needs to be wellness programs for officers or encouraging them to be fit is if you can fight, you're not going to go for that gun.
Right.
If you know you can handle yourself in a situation. So it's just complex. And all of this stuff is part of the pillars of 21st century policing. But one of the things that FBI trainers have said is if you know how to fight, and this is for anybody, if you know how to fight really hard, that's why like the CrossFit, that HIT training, if you can fight hard for 2 minutes, then chances are you're going to live. But you know, so it's a little bit more complex. Policing is very, 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 very complex, and I'm definitely pro folks that are going to be willing while we're sleeping to put themselves out there on the line. Has there been, and is there, because of the history of it, a disconnect between our community and policing? Absolutely, but that's why, that is why we need to have African Americans and others, Muslims, Asians, women, black, white. We need all different. We need people. We need people who are scholars. We need IT people. You need a diversity of perspective in it. But I also think that sometimes within our community, because we don't want to be snitches, we don't like 5-0. I think think the message that we get is that it isn't for us, and it absolutely is. Because legitimately, if I had started policing 20 years ago, I would be somebody's police.
I think that's the main thing that holds a lot of African Americans, the snitching.
Yeah. I think it's the stigma.
That stigma. I think that holds a lot of African Americans back from wanting to be involved with law enforcement.
Of the snitching.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
they don't want to be labeled as that.
And you know what? And I can completely understand that. And that's one of the same reasons why I would get mad with TV reporters. Because I remember there was something that happened. It might have been a shooting in Phoenix. And a reporter had like a little 8-year-old kid asking questions in the neighborhood. And it made me really mad because I was like, you don't live here. But you got this child on TV talking about what he saw and who he saw. Mm-hmm. So I agree, but this is my thing. And it's really my thing in every way.
Sound like you with the streets. Sound like you with the streets.
I'm with every. I think you have to. I think that if you now, let me just tell you this. I mean, like I'm educated.
Perfectly balanced.
Like I'm educated and cute thing, but I can get with it. Okay, I mean, you know what I'm saying. I mean, I'm just trying to say, I ain't that weak.
I like this.
I ain't that weak. I mean, I ain't that weak, but
I mean, you gotta be strong to be in your position.
But I can be smooth as butter. But I also think you have to. I think in everything that you do, whether you're social justice, law enforcement, teacher, mom, dad, the things that you do have to be meted with justice. Like if you coming from places with ego, because I'm the boss, or I'm a man, or I'm a woman, or I'm pretty, or you know, I got a big booty, or whatever it is that you. Okay, I'm sorry you said this was wretched. I'm saying that whatever you, if your intent is not right, it's not gonna work out.
Never will.
But if your intent is right, people know the difference between genuine and fake.
For sure.
And so, you know, so I think that's it. So it's just been, I've had about a 22-year career in public service, and I tend to be more gravitated to the people that actually take the service part of it to heart. Mm-hmm. But I have an adopted son who is an FBI agent in Chicago, and he's over the gang, but he's part of the gang task force. Beautiful brother who is following in his work mom's footsteps, 4.0 at Clemson, public administration program, was on the SWAT team at the Richland County Sheriff's Department, and he's from Chicago, was a basketball player, and he's going back to try and make a difference in his hometown. And when you say more with the streets or whatever else, this is my thing about the snitching thing. No matter who you are, what your socioeconomic status is, you deserve to be in a safe environment.
I agree.
And so it is complicated, the whole snitching thing, but I just think we're better than this. And I cannot tell you, when I worked for the Richland County Sheriff's Department, and I would see little peewees, little 13 and 12-year-olds in handcuffs because they beat up a principal or armed robbery or something. I mean, I would pull them aside and say, "You're beautiful. We need better. We need to." But there is a reason. I don't have the answers, but there is a reason. And until we can actually really say that we are losing a lot of our young people, and specifically our beautiful young black men, to violence, until somebody's really saying, like what Mr. Frierson said, we're not going to solve it if we keep trying to act like it's not happening. I mean, that doesn't give people a right to use it as a weapon, to weaponize it. But we also can't act like there's not a problem. And I think some of the things that's very complicated is, yes, the criminal justice system does need to be reformed, but we got to be in the game to reform it. What did Henry Louis Gates said? If you want to use the master's tools, if you want to change the system or the master's house or something, you've got to use his tools. We've got to be educated. We need judges. We need prosecutors. We need defense attorneys. We can't act like we're not being that we're not being perpetrated to and damaged. I mean, fortunately, hopefully, none of you all have been victimized or who had families that have been victimized. But I just wish that in our high crime areas, that people could just really understand the history. Like Mr. Roosevelt Bryant said, there are people, and I know when you're young, it's hard to hear about this, but if you actually think, just 50 years ago, just within my lifetime, there were people that shed blood so we could vote. Mm-hmm. That you had Black Wall Street. You had people that really do think that our ancestors would probably be rolling over in their graves if they saw where we are. We definitely have Black excellence, but we aren't pulling each other up the way that we used to. We're talking about each other, even within our own families, okay? So what, the young girl had a baby. Let's not talk about her. Let's embrace her. Right, exactly. All right, so if you see that a young parent, father is struggling, help them. If you have an extra car, it may not, you may not be able to floss, but help. And I think that's probably where we're lacking, is that we're not willing to actually step in and really, really help. Even families are disconnected.
For sure.
So as don't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
So as citizens, because I'm a firm believer in bringing more police officers doesn't help, because as a former
Military.
police person, I don't know the correct
That's
term.
fine.
Yeah,
That's
background
fine. That's
law
fine.
enforcement. You're a major.
Yes.
The Kansas City Police Department back in the 70s, they did a survey saying, like, just because you have more patrol cars in the area, that doesn't technically, in theory, means that the crime rate will go lower. So what can we do as citizens in the community to actually, like, help prevent? Like, what's your thoughts?
Well, again, I am not going to sit here and act like I have the answers, because if I did,
It'll be fixed.
Yes, exactly. But let me also say this. This is a frustration being in Lake City. Everybody, I mean,
Before you get all the way into it,
Everybody has the answer.
You've been in Lake City how long?
almost 2 years. February will be 2 years.
And this is probably the roughest you've seen it with the, things that's been happening lately.
Yes, probably, because, I'm sitting at my computer and I'm like, what? A second shooting? I think it was last Monday. But let me just say this, okay? Everywhere it is buck wild. And I know that I'm the city administrator of Lake City, so I care about Lake City, and I understand with the population of under 7,000, it is actually very jarring. But again, I split my time between Lake City and Columbia, Richland, and as great as the Sheriff's Department and Police Department are there, and then also I live in the community. I live off North Main Street. Okay. Shout out to North Main, 202, not 203. But anyway, but I was very deliberate about that. I wanted to live in our community and actually help make our community better. So I'm not just talking about it. I'm walking the walk.
Really in the trenches.
Right. Yes, exactly. But what I'm saying is, everywhere, in the communities around us, the shootings, the armed robberies, the murders. I mean, in the Columbia area, we had 2 14-year-olds that killed a cab driver. That just happened probably within the last month. And so it doesn't make it right, but I'm just saying, to place it in context, this epidemic of youth violence is happening around us. I mean, to me, and again, I don't have the answers, but I do not understand how 35 people can be shot dead over a weekend in Chicago, and it's not declared a national epidemic, and the best people go in there and think about it. And if it's an economic thing, think about this now. Who has ties to Chicago? You got Mother O, you've got Michael Jordan. So I'm going to give some Obama.
R. Kelly?
Oh, see,
R. Kelly still muted? Is he still
no,
muted?
but I had an idea. I was thinking, you know what? Maybe perhaps Nike, Michael Jordan, could actually put like a design studio or a small factory in some of the most challenged areas. Because a lot of these areas don't have basketball courts. I saw like a documentary, and there's not any jobs. Young men love sneakers, right? So what if Nike and Michael Jordan put some investment in Chicago, said, hey, if you put down the guns, we'll have a competition, and you can develop a shy town. I'm giving somebody a business plan now. And there's community development block grant money too, but Nike, I mean, think about all the sneakers that young men buy and everything. But anyway, have a plant and a design studio there, or just a design studio, and have a big competition. And the winner actually will wind up have the shy, the 2020 edition sneaker. You're employing people, you're using the creative skills, something that they love, and potentially creating future designers and some sort of economy. But anyway, it's so many things, but I definitely think it's an economic thing, because if your belly's fat and you're happy and you're making money and you're feeling good about being able to provide for your family, are you going to be banging? I mean, legally?
More than likely, no.
Right.
So what can we do?
I was gonna.
Yeah. So like,
you think we need to bring some of those similar ideas to Lake City?
that bring jobs. I mean, in my opinion, like, not to cut you off, but like,
No,
in my
you're not.
opinion, I feel like we said, when you said economics, it like, it really like sprung up on me. Like, when you bring more jobs, and like, one of the questions I have is like, since really Coleman left in like the late '90s, like, Lake City's really been on the down like turn. So like, what can
We've had service jobs. There's been a lot of like storefront jobs, but true economic development, bringing industry in and that sort of thing, probably no. But the thing that even with many of the places that do have the industry, a lot of them are bringing in outside people, because our skill sets in South Carolina, the technical schools and things. You know, I'm not criticizing technical schools, but they tried to be mini universities, and they got lost in and they're getting back to the technical part. But I had a pleasure to tour the Boeing plant, which is massive, but they're among one of the only employers that actually will take people out of high school and train them and give them the skills. And so we need that, but really, and I know that with the STEM programs and everything, they're trying to do that, but with a lot of the industry that's coming in, HVAC systems, you have to be good in math. You have to understand even basic algebra. So a lot of times when companies are looking at coming to an area, they're looking at a lot of things. They're looking at, does the population actually have the skill set that we need? They're looking at, what's the quality of life? Are there walking paths? What's the housing stock like? Lake City has some challenges with housing stock. I mean, I've had a few people in from the state to look at how I can get some programs started, but we have a lot of abandoned, and it's not uncommon with rural places. We have a lot of abandoned and dilapidated housing. That brings the property taxes down, which makes it hard, and values, which makes it hard for me to actually fund things. And that's funded through a general fund budget. In Lake City, the general fund budget is about $7 million, and that sounds massive, but when you
It's not.
consider
Spread over
It's
not.
it isn't. And okay, for an example, a mill is the mechanism by which we raise taxes, or the tax mechanism. In Lake City, the mill is $14,800. In Columbia, for example, one mill is $1 million, or maybe a little over it. So again, but we have to work within what it is that we have. Tonight, we heard a lot of people say there's nothing for young adults to do. And I'll just say this. When I came into Lake City, I could not believe that we really didn't have a lot of facilities. And Miss Cynthia Millett, shout out to Miss Cynthia, who was doing a lot trying to keep things going. But among the things that when I came in, one of the things that I realized is we needed to work with mayor and council to build trust with the community, because I don't believe in overselling what you can do. I just think that people have been really disappointed, hurt by government saying we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then we don't do it. So you got to get to know people before you can start assessing what the problems are. So in the time that I've been here, we started movie nights, and Lake City, y'all, love you. It's so funny, because it's almost like they were looking at me like, okay, and she about to do free movies, and we're gonna have free popcorn and drinks and stuff. This heifer really gonna do this? So is she really stop it? Is she really gonna do this? We might try and come out and see. Let's see. And so we started doing that, and it culminated with the Black Panther. This was in 2018 when I came in this summer, and the community just started going out, and we brought it to different areas. We did it to Kennedy Park, we did it at the Green, and we did it. Shout out to Kennedy Park, and it was really great. And it gave it wasn't just, it was for families, and so you had young people, you had teenagers, and people came out. And so we did that again this year, and then we started thinking about the violence before this even started happening, and said, you know what, the police need to get to know our community. And so I worked with Chief Coker to actually do something called Games on the Green. And it was a hit. I mean, it was a hit. Let me tell you, we did this in less than 2 weeks. And what we did was we brought back the old school games. See, everybody's on this, and people are not doing this. They're not talking. They're not connecting. And everybody says that, but it actually is true. So we had Double Dutch. We had...
Oh, y'all went old school.
What? We listen.
Did you get involved?
Hold on. Wait for it. No, but listen, I had DJ Mac. He's like 12 years old. He looks like he should be solving the proton neutron. He was killing it. He was killing it on the ones and twos. He even made DJ Superman a little salty.
Shout out to Superman.
But it was a 12-year-old child, so he was killing it. And guess what? He was playing the Ohio players. And we were like, you weren't even what? And so what you would see, there was a grandma on her walker. You see her moving her. So we had
Get that Social Security.
we had in the perimeter we had Jenga, we had Operation, we had all the old school games you can think about. But then on the green, we had Double Dutch, we had relay races, we had potato sack races, we even had like basketball hoops, and probably about 250 to 300 people. We had the old, y'all ain't gonna remember this, but people used to do what they called the parachute game. Where they have a parachute. Yeah, we had all that stuff.
Wow. Field days. Wow.
And let me
We're showing our age.
right. But let me tell you, but what it did was we don't know each other anymore. And to actually see the young people actually interact, and I'm trying to see if I can find you some photos, but it was amazing. And you know what? I had snacks and everything. I had to take all the snacks back. It was a 2-hour event. I worked with Roosevelt, Bryant, and several other people. And it was so phenomenal to see the grandmothers interacting with the mamas, interacting with the kids. The teenagers had something to do. And again, it has to be consistent. We tried it to see if people loved it, and they did. So we'll be doing it. And you know what? I think it might have cost the city $400 to do that. And it was. There are very few times in my life when this has happened, except every day I see you, honey, my husband. Shout out to Mr. Wesley Keller. But
shout out to hubby.
yeah, but it was amazing. And again, like you heard in the church, we're not connecting. We need to connect. And this is great. We can get the word out. But sometimes you need to sit down and talk to each other. It always kills me, and I told my husband, we can't be those people. You'll see people out on a date or a situation or whatever.
Shout out to the situation.
That's awful. So,
Wow.
and you'll
Wow.
and you'll see her here, and you'll see him there,
They ain't even looking at each other
right,
or
and
engaging.
talking and connecting, right? So we have been doing that. We have community-wide cleanups, and we need to do a better job of getting people to actually work together to clean up the neighborhoods. Miss Cynthia is working hard to get our little ones doing baseball and football and basketball because we actually work with the schools to do it. So there are, so slowly but surely, and like I told you, and he can attest to it, I have nothing to hide. No one in the city has anything to hide. We're transparent. The budget is out there. So if anybody, I think good leadership means you got to take the sugar and you got to take the medicine. And the community knows better than I do what it is that it needs. And so if someone's going to criticize or has a constructive criticism or has a concern, we have an obligation to listen. I mean, I get chewed out sometimes, but you know what? In the South, if you're not like from a community, and it takes a while for you to develop trust. But I would like to think, because I've always had an open door policy and I'm not tripping, that I have actually developed at least a reputation, of being fair and consistent. I don't care if you are worth millions of dollars or if you have two cents
Or $40.
or $40.
Shout out to that 40.
Shout out to the. I'm not gonna shout out to the.
No.
You're not gonna get me to shout out to the. That can be misconstrued. See, y'all out to.
No. We just cutting up a
We're not
little bit.
shouting out.
We just cutting up a little bit. Finish your
Okay.
point.
No, but I'm saying you just have to actually be consistent, and myself, I do mentor. When Dr. Hickson, our superintendent with the school district, Laura Hickson, when she said she had there were some girls not getting along, young ladies at the high school, and she put together a group of women in the community to actually go in and talk to them and spend time with them. And if that meant 2 or 3 hours out of my day, I'm going to do it. I have a little mentor right now at J. Paul. He's a 13-year-old boy who does not have his dad in his life, and sometimes he'll act up in school. I will roll up on that school if I get a call. He's not my child. He's being raised by his grandparent, and I really think that's what it's going to take. I can't do it all. No one can do it all, but we've got to actually.
It takes a village to raise a kid.
I know, and I know that everybody, that's trite, but it's really true. And when I rolled up, he was smiling. I was like, hold up. You taking me away from my day. Don't be smiling. So, this ain't no good visit. Right. I said, you 13, you don't run nothing.
Exactly.
So yeah. So it's just it's so complicated, but I think venues like this actually make it better. And also having intergenerational dialogue is important, and we don't do that. You all do because you're communicators, but when is the last time
you don't communicate?
No, but when is the last time you saw 20s communicating with the 30s, with the 40s, and the 50s? There's wisdom. I have a 95-year-old grandfather, and when I was you all's age, I said, Grandpa, what do you think are the keys to life? And he said, pay attention to your money. He said, do the things you want to do. And the biggest thing he said is, don't let the bad things that happen to you in your life gunk up your heart, just kind of soil your heart. You have to be at a stage in your life where you can actually receive the wisdom. And I think, and I'm just going to break it down now. The views expressed by Stephany Snowden are not necessarily those of the city of Lake City.
Let's talk about it.
But you have people in my age group in their 50s that have no wisdom. So how can y'all respect? How can you respect me if I'm walking around with no wisdom? Like back in the day, age and wisdom was equated. And now, I don't know why, but it really isn't. But that's why, generally speaking, I try to actually represent the way that I like to see young ladies, represent themselves, because you never know who's watching you and who's going to employ you. Now, I know I'm going to probably get run out of Lake City, but I'm going to need y'all to leave those bonnets at home. Y'all are too for all of that.
No!
Again, the views expressed by Stephany Snowden. And I know, what? Did I hit?
I like the bonnet.
You like the bonnet? You really do?
The bonnet hit a little different.
You like the bonnet outside?
No.
Okay.
Oh, outside?
I don't like the bonnet outside.
Outside?
Inside different. It hit a little different
Listen,
inside.
And I know I'm probably making them feel a certain kind of way, but listen, when I grew up, when I was coming of age, it was like you were representing me and I'm representing you. So, and you're representing your family. And so when you go out the house, nobody is saying that you need to have $1,000 Gucci slippers on. But all I'm saying is children are watching. And so you could throw a sweatsuit on with a baseball hat. And I'm saying this even to we are the kings and queens of the universe and the galaxy. We need to represent ourselves a little bit better, because when you represent yourself a little better, then you feel better. I'm just saying that, maybe I stepped on y'all's toes. I'm sorry, but I just think that the ancestors would be rolling in their graves, because you got to bring back that pride. How would y'all feel if you came in here and you said, I'm having a problem with my water bill, I need to see the city administrator, and I walked out with a bonnet?
Rough day, rough morning.
Nah, you ain't gonna respect that.
I mean, I'm gonna judge people out here.
We do. We make, and that's what I'm saying.
You're not going to expect that from the city administrator.
Okay, you're like, okay. But in my off time, if you happen to see me like, watering my flowers on North Main, and you saw me in the bonnet, that'd be all right.
Different. Yeah, that's different.
Okay, all right.
But when you in action,
no, that's shit. But I'm just saying, we have to actually understand that our children are watching how we move. That's all. And, you know, and for me, whenever I knew I was handling business, whether that was a transaction of going to the store or purchasing a car or whatever, I would always dress up because I was like, I don't want to have to fuss nobody out because of possible treatment. I want them to know that I'm going to handle my business. I think you all have inherited a better world in that maybe people are less judgmental. I mean, when I was y'all's age, if a woman had box braids or was wearing natural, I mean, literally they could wind up losing their job. So I think from that standpoint, you know, it has gotten a little bit better, but we all judge. I mean, we shouldn't, but we all make judgments based on the way someone appears and speaks and things like that.
It's natural.
Yeah, it is.
Natural.
I'm liking that diamond.
Mm.
What?
Something light.
I mean, Charlton is expensive.
Wow.
All right. So we got a bunch of questions coming in.
Okay.
All right.
We ain't gonna be able to hit all of them.
We're not.
But we're gonna hit a few.
We're gonna hit about.
Let you go,
We're gonna hit about 4, 5.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
All right. So we talked about training in the budget earlier.
Right.
So are they going to be able to get the police be able to get the training? Like, do you foresee that in the near
Yes,
future?
they've actually had unconscious bias training, which is basically people looking at race and how they feel about this. People could term it racial sensitivity, but it was deeper than that. So they've had that, and they do. We are looking at. I will tell you, Chief Coker is someone who's very open to ideas and is working with me very well. I mean, no institution, you know, is perfect, but we are moving in that direction. We want to have more. He and I have talked about the fact that we need to, in 2020, implement a citizens advisory committee, and that would be folks that would look at police actions, complaints, and like to see them actually being at least a citizen being on a hiring board, because they're going to look at it from a different perspective. I think the days of really looking at it as a us against them, you know, has to end. And in Lake City, when someone complains about the police or whatever, the chief and I bring them in and talk about it. You know, if a young man or woman says, I don't like the way that I was treated, I feel like I was being treated unfair, we actually sit down with them and go through what happened. And very often we'll even look at video and just make sure. And so we actually listen, and if corrective measures need to be, and if corrective measures need to be implemented, then we do that. And if additional training needs to happen, then they do that. And if apology is warranted, you know, then they do that. But again, I think sometimes people don't. I think sometimes whenever anything happens in any area, all law enforcement gets painted with the same brush. Okay.
All right.
But yes, training is.
I think
number one.
One of the main questions a lot of people want to know is, with the recent violence that's happened, I know you've been in communication with the police. Is there some sort of new plan that's been put together on how they're going to go forward about, you know, stopping violence in the future?
Yes. I know that SLED, the FBI, and other federal agencies have been in, and there is a plan. So I can't say much more about that, but on the law enforcement piece, there is a plan. But there has to also be, you've got a time when you actually have to have that zero tolerance to kind of get it under control. But much like what former Judge Frierson, who's now the Economic Development Director for Williamsburg County, said is, you've got to actually also do that social piece. I mean, the Dannon Project, more than 100 young ladies and men who had law enforcement interactions and were not on a good path are heading to college, getting training, getting jobs. So, but also the community the law enforcement has to also have a presence in the community that's outside of the enforcement. And our chief and his community services person and many of our officers are in the school reading and things like that. You don't always see it, so they're not always going ham on the streets. They are actually engaging, but I think we could always do better.
So are y'all planning on partnering with people that's already doing like stuff in the community?
Yes, like for example, Mr. Roosevelt Bryant, who had a cookout for men and boys in the community. We working with Miss Cynthia, the city actually donated food and drinks and everything to support it. Right now, we're actually sponsoring some of the initiatives that the school district is doing with mentoring programs. So I think that rather than everyone starting their own thing, we need to look at the things that are actually going on and work together instead of having, because if we actually pooled the resources, it would be a little bit better. You heard Miss Harriet Rose speak tonight. The city provides free space for the PD Coalition that advocates for abused women and children. I don't know if you all know this, but the estimate is about 80% of every male or female who winds up behind bars was a product of domestic violence. Either they watched a parent being beat or they were abused. So imagine if we could stop that trauma. Maybe people wouldn't go to school angry or fight or have, and then, one of the things that Roosevelt, who's a fitness person, says is we've kind of taken some of the physical education out of schools because of testing and things like that. And think about when you all were 16, 17 years old. Did you ride bicycles? Did you go out? Mm-hmm. We're not, and because of the culture, maybe we're not getting as much physical. I know that when I was in school, we had PE. Is it mandatory in the schools now? Y'all don't know. I'm sorry. All right. Well, but I mean, I don't know if they're getting as much recreation.
Right. I don't think they're getting enough emotional and mental education. If it is up to me, I feel like every student not only should go to therapy, I think every student should go through a social media class.
Okay, well, let's talk about therapy. You're right, because they put stupid stuff on that's out there forever, but also understanding the power of it. Let's talk about mental health. And let's talk now to FAM. African Americans have traditionally not talked about the importance of mental health. Now, if you think about the trauma that some of us grow up with, not maybe having a parent or seeing abuse or whatever else, or being abused, we look at it as weak. So for women, she's a strong black woman. That's not fair.
Yeah, because she used to get beat on by her man, she's a strong black woman.
Or because she's raising her children by herself. I'm interested in hearing what people have to say. I think that is entirely unfair. Women, black women and others, we're not Teflon. We cry, we hurt, but I think we're putting an unfair expectation on women, and specifically black women, that you don't get to be weak. And so as a consequence, and people gonna get mad when I say this, I think we're masculinizing ourselves. Mm. We don't have to be hard. We should be able to sit on the porch and drink mint juleps.
Hold on. Devil's advocate. Wow, but there's a lot of black women that say, I don't need a man for nothing.
Okay, but that's because that's what they're being told. That's what they're being fed. Okay, so my mama is 70 years old.
I love black women.
Yes. My mother is a 70-year-old black woman who's getting a PhD in nursing.
She's single?
She's phenomenal, beautiful, and everything.
Going strong.
She's single?
She is. Wow. By choice. But this is the thing. When I was growing up, what she told me was basically to be independent and to not rely on a man and blah, 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 blah. But sometimes that message can be so coded in that we don't need you. And I don't know if that's a battle that's going on now. I don't know, but I'm just saying we do need you. I think that you can, and I don't talk much about my husband, but I think that you can be, because people will say to him, "I bet your wife's not opinionated." He was like, "Do you know my wife?" My husband is strong. He's a man. He's courageous. He's a great provider. He is a man, but also. I'm a strong person myself, but we're able to coexist. And I think sometimes the message that we, and women help me out here, that we get is that you can't have both. But I do agree with you about the mental health. I think that we do need to actually, if I had a magic wand, the thing that I would do is create a safe space for those 18 to 35, 36 years old, where they could go, where they could get confidential mental health, that it could be like a kicking it kind of room or place, space, maybe like a kind of have some cafe vibes, but that they could actually have access to mental health confidentially. Because the thing is that back in the day, you had 80, 90-year-old grandma or grandpa or 60 that you could talk to about life and they didn't freak out. And they gave you non-judgmental. But
We're not doing this tonight.
I'm sorry, who is it?
Daphne, don't worry.
Hey, Daphne.
Don't worry, we're not even
Love
doing
you,
this.
Daph. Hey, girl.
No, that's real what she said.
What?
It's true.
She said it's a big part of the problem. Father figures are missing and are not setting the standard.
And, okay, so let me ask you this. If I told you that I grew up in an abusive household, would you believe me?
I'll take your word for it.
I'll take your word for it.
So if I told you that there were times when I watched my mom go to work with holes in her shoes because she had to take care of 3 children essentially by herself, would you believe me? If I told you that as a reporter I was attacked and left for dead a little over 20 years ago, would you believe me? I'm just saying you cannot look at people and tell what they've gone through. But I will say a major hole in my heart. Now I've had father figures that filled that, but I do believe Daphne. And this isn't a condemning, because if you have fathers and men and young men that have grown up in trauma, they don't know how to be good husbands or fathers. So let's just say take me for example. If I was living my trauma, if I was living out my trauma, and I wound up attracting a man who was trauma, we're gonna have a trauma situation.
Hurt people.
No, it's true, but we don't talk about it. See, I made a conscious decision that I had to get well, that I had to actually overcome. Because if I had a father that protected me, I mean, like what I mean is I didn't come under the covering of a man to protect me, so I had to take care of myself mentally and emotionally as a 5, 6, 7-year-old girl. Now, of course, I had great grandfathers and everything else, but I moved out into the world not knowing what a man was supposed to do and be, or how to have a relationship. And I did stub my toes, but I always had, a certain amount of pride. But that is real. What Daphne is talking about is very real.
You gotta let that hurt go, ain't it?
Yes, but you have to let it go. But the thing is that think about this now. I don't know if you all have children, but think about this. More of our young ladies are sleeping in households where daddy's not there. And it has been, and you can read the research, a young girl not being raised with her father, she starts puberty earlier, she starts menstruating earlier, but a dad in the household actually staves that off. Because I'm talking about biologically. This sounds crazy, but I've actually read the research. So, there's something to be said about the protection and cover. I think I would have beat Obama to the White House had my daddy been like that. I mean, I'm like legitimately a father or a mother can either crush their child or damage their child so much that they don't reach their full potential. I think that. So, and we don't talk about it enough, but yes, mental health is important.
For sure. Yeah, I think I got one last question.
Okay.
How many questions you got left?
I got one more.
Go ahead,
Okay.
because I forgot what I got.
Far as things to do in the city.
Okay.
Is there still a Boys and Girls Club or like
There is, and there's a phenomenal
I don't see a lot of
director and
promotion
everything.
about it.
Well, they are doing a lot. They're doing summer programs, summer camps. They're doing mentoring programs. They are there. But as you heard, the gap is older. But there's a new internship program called Next Up, where I have interns, and all over the city they're getting paid for the summer. So there are things, but we definitely need to actually do more.
For sure.
Let's say we want to host a couple of events. We're going to holler at you.
Come holla.
Okay.
Holla. I'll holla back.
Say less. I think this has been very productive. I think really the people in Lake City, like, they really needed transparency, because it's like a disconnect between city leadership and regular citizens. Yeah.
This is why y'all got me tripping. at 10 o'clock at night. But I think the disconnect is probably, like, you all probably skew a younger adult. Would you say that would probably be it?
Correct.
Sure.
Okay, so they're not coming to city council meetings. They don't know me. And so I hope that through this, they know they can come and see me. They can come and talk if they have an idea. If they see that something's wrong, we can do something better. And I'm telling you, the mayor is available to that. The police chief is available to that. But in between with my job, it was so funny. I went to a school, and I always try to tell young people what I do because they don't think about running a city or a county or whatever else. And this is a great opportunity. But water sewer issues, infrastructure issues, police issues, anything that you can name from A to Z. And I love it. But whatever it is that I'm doing, I will stop, and talk to people and get their ideas. But this generation, the folks that you're appealing to, they're not coming to the council meetings. They're not going along in line and looking at the budget. They're not. So it's almost like dating. You have to keep doing it, but they don't know. They don't know, but they don't. What? I'm sorry. I ain't mean to.
No, I was just saying in general.
But I'm saying that this is the reason why somebody said to me, you had somebody come to me and they were like, you probably ain't gonna do it. I was like, no, tell them I'll do it. Because we have to appeal and try to do for the whole community. So we are transparent. We don't have anything to hide. The budget's out there. You can come and see me if I did something wrong, said something wrong.
Y'all plan on increasing the budget?
I'm working through it right now, but let me just say, our taxes are not tremendously high on I think on a $70,000 home. Don't get me lying, but the average value is about $70,000. But this is the thing: if you want me to do more, and if we want to actually keep our water and sewer system and that sort of thing, we have to deal with the stuff that has just been so denied, and I just want people to know that I'm here because I really want to be here and because I really do love this city. And as the first Black female administrator, I think you've had other administrators that were African American, but as the first, I think that it just has to be about excellence and about collaboration.
For sure.
I like that answer. I feel like everything will fall in place. Like, you bring jobs here, obviously houses get bought, obviously the budget gets bigger, more resources being utilized, everybody be happy. But at the end of the day, and you can't make everybody happy. I just want to let you know that you ain't gonna make everybody happy.
No, you're not. But the thing is that you can be fair to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I may not be able to make everybody happy, but if they leave me and they say, I can't stand that heifer, but she was fair. And I try, and you can't expect that everybody understands the inner workings of government, and we can't talk over people's heads and make things so complicated to feel good about ourselves and our position. And so I really break things down. I will go to someone's home and bring them the paperwork they need. If the trash is going to be late, I'm going to put on those sneakers and go out there and talk to people. So,
With the bonnet on.
with a bonnet on.
Shout out to
Never
that
that. Never that.
Mismatched
I'm sorry.
socks.
I'm sorry, ladies. I'm not trying to jump on you. Some of the bonnets are cute, but I'm just saying, I'm old. I'm just old school.
Goals for 2020.
Goals for 2020?
Let's talk about it.
The goals that I have for 2020 is to actually stabilize some of the services that need to be stabilized.
Okay.
To start doing more visioning.
Get a vision board.
For the community. No, I want community members to have visions because people don't have them. Have you ever done a vision board?
I haven't.
Have you ever done a vision board?
No.
Okay, let me tell you, I did one probably about 4 years ago when I was kind of like on a job that I really couldn't stand.
Let's talk about it.
Well, it was because the person that I worked for was very intimidated, and he liked having people around him that were not as smart as him. And so if he felt like you were a threat, he put you in a box. And I'm not a box girl. But the Lord actually, when I'm in crazy situations, I'm like, what am I supposed to learn from this? Because I really feel like if you don't ask that question, you're going to keep going. It's going to be like Groundhog Day. You might move someplace else, but you're going to be learning that same lesson. And what I learned is, if you can move in the box,
Talk about it.
if you can be on your purpose in the box, when God delivers you from that box, you can be on fire. So what that experience was like was to teach me to move in the box, but also to not put people in a box.
Tabernacle.
No, I'm not tabernacle, but I'm just saying that's why I did not like it. So, but in that, I actually did a vision board, and every single thing, and I put it on the refrigerator, and every single thing has come to pass. I think you got to put it out there in the universe, and you got to dream.
I hear that a lot.
You got to put it out in the universe. You got to put it out there. But you can be self-defeatist too, because if you say I'm gonna try, I'm hoping to. No, you got to say I'm gonna do
Don't
it.
go to hell.
Who?
No, he's talking about y'all boys fought Martin Luther King.
Oh, he's calling us old.
No, I think I'm
Oh, okay.
No.
But yeah, so that's why, because I was put in a box. But you can make moves even in the box.
For sure. So, what's the easiest way for people to get in contact with you
Okay.
that would like to
Okay,
speak with you?
so I'm gonna go ahead, because again, y'all pay for this. Okay, so my cell phone is 843-598-8551, 843-598-8551. And if you want to reach me at the city, we're at 202 Kelly Street here in Lake City. My name is Stephany Snowden. I appreciate y'all spending some time with me. I appreciate you gentlemen and what you're doing. I'm very impressed, and yeah, hey, we're gonna make it happen. Lake City has all of the greatness to actually be among the communities that actually can put their arms around it. And I just want to say this: I don't care what someone's doing or what they're involved in. The thing that hurts my heart is to see young men killing each other over foolishness. If you think about all the grandparents and parents, y'all know your grandparents? You know your grandparents? Okay, but you experienced them, right?
Right.
So this is so deep. Think about this now. It took your grandparents to get your parents to get here. Then it took their parents and their grandparents, all of that to get you here. So if people actually appreciated the bloodline, the blood, sweat, and tears to actually make it so that you could be here this day, why would you not have more respect for your life? I would challenge anybody to go on Ancestry.com or go look at the census and find your grandparents when they were a kid or whatever else. It's awe-inspiring to think about all the conditions that had to be right in order for you to get here. And so just that lack of respect for each other's lives, that actually keeps me awake at night crying to think about the loss of African American males in particular to just the senseless gun violence, and hoping to make an announcement of doing a gun buyback program. But and you all will be the first to get that, because
That's major.
if you know
Breaking news?
once we're able to work that out, and that was the police department's idea, and I definitely agree will be. But we got to kind of work out the logistics, because trying to make sure ain't no paperwork, because you know people ain't gonna turn in guns if there's a whole lot of paperwork.
Hey,
It's good to be optimistic.
Yeah.
we really appreciate you taking time to speak with
Definitely.
us. You definitely, opened up our minds to a lot. And I'm pretty sure you've inspired a lot of, somebody that was viewing. You've inspired them to, probably take it to the next level, and being a figure in the community that can help bring change, especially among the young people.
Just a servant.
For sure.
Yeah, 'cause we see everything that's going on, and we know that it's not 100%.
Right. Perfect. Yeah.
Like,
No.
Yeah, to give a platform to defend y'all selves.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
Well, we'll see you around. We'll probably do part 2.
Okay.
We'll give it some time. See how
Couple
things
months.
go.
Just don't set me up with no bonnets. Just
No.
don't set me up. I ain't trying
There's
to.
no bonnets in
I
this
ain't
map.
trying to fight. I ain't trying to fight.
Wow. Shout out to them bonnets, man.
You about to get it, Brody?
Yeah, we about to end.
Oh, we're not done?
No, we done.
Oh, okay.
It's a wrap. Yeah.